Donald Trump has opened up his largest lead of the race so far. It is looking a little bit scary. So here we have the top battlegrounds. On average, you have Trump now up 1.1 overall. We have had a sell-off of Kamala Harris, and that's actually the timing of this is coming right after sort of some conflict happening between Iran and Israel, amongst some other things. Trump running a fairly strong campaign in the final stretches here. Some stumbles from the Harris team you could point to for that about 1 to 2 point decline in her support. So if you are on the Harris team, obviously these polls are very concerning. Again, this is not the popular vote average, although that is also surprisingly narrowing up as well. There is, a little more of the left, or excuse me, the right-leaning polls coming out here, like Rasmussen, Atlas Intel, for example. We've had more right-leaning polls sort of getting into the mix there. That being said, I don't want to use that as an excuse because the polling is what it is on average. And when you look at the aggregate, Trump is pulling ahead. This was very close for a while. Harris was ahead in many ways, and now um, yeah, there's not a lot of ways to spin it when you look at the actual data. So that is what it is. Harris, I think this is probably about as bad as it's going to get in terms of the polling, but gonna need to seriously turn up the heat, put the foot on the gas pedal in order to turn this around. Now, I want to present you guys with the silver lining here. The reason why Harris still potentially will go ahead and win this race, why I think that will still be the eventual outcome. Um, the silver lining here, and I have several things to show you guys, is that Trump has been how should I say this? The Republicans and Trump have been underperforming the polling in almost every single of the last elections here. So we had this in the Republican primary, where if you look at, for example, I'm just going to show you one of these particular polling instances. There were several more that followed after this. When you had Trump versus Haley in the Republican primary, you see that before the election, right before election day, he was polling at about 15.6% ahead, 15%, 16%. The actual result on election day turned out to be only a 11 point win, 11 percentage point win. So you had a 5 percentage point swing, a 5 percentage point error away from Donald Trump in that election. You can go ahead and do the same thing, look up the polling for several of the other states before Nikki Haley dropped out to get pretty much the best results. I think 7 out of the 8 states, or even more than that, before Haley dropped out on election day, Trump underperformed in the polls. Again, in 2022, there was this anticipated red wave that was supposed to come and absolutely devastate the Democrats. This was at peak inflation. Most people, most pundits, most political analysts, and pollsters thought there was absolutely a red wave coming. It was going to dismantle and destroy the Democrats. However, it didn't materialize. And part of that was the turnout from women coming to stand for their rights to vote against the tyranny of overturning Roe versus Wade and make their voices heard. You had a surge there on the Democrat side as well, and it canceled out the Republican red wave. Republicans took the House, but it was only barely so, and Democrats actually picked up seats in, I think, the governorships and the Senate. And one of those examples is that there was this race between Oz versus Fetterman. There was others between Kari Lake and Hobbs in Arizona, and you can go and look. I think there was another one in Pennsylvania. But in a lot of these states, the Republican was winning on average, and you saw poll after poll after poll where looked very, very promising for the Republican up until election day. And the result was devastating in the other direction. Again, a secret Democrat vote this time, and a strong victory for Fetterman in that case. And then you had another case where Whitmer was running a close race against Dixon, and she goes on to win that very, very comfortably, a massive swing in her direction on election day. Now, the caveat to the caveat is that you can expect a massive surge of support for Trump. We saw that in 2020. He has this effect. He has this magnetism that he brings out on election day. He really drives up his base and he really drives people who otherwise maybe wouldn't have voted to go and vote for him. There are people that for some reason or another are still going to give him a chance. I certainly won't be one of them, but they are out there. But the caveat to the caveat to the caveat is that he also drives up people to vote on the other side to vote against him. So there are a lot of moving pieces in this race. Again, my point here is Trump is opening up his biggest lead in the polling so far. However, while he has seen swings on election day that have favored him massively. That has not been the case in recent elections. And the hope for Harris is that she gets a five, it's not going to be a 5% swing, I don't think, but a 2 to 3 to 4% swing in some of those swing states. And look, if they are as close as they are, and all of them within really 1 to 2 points. The only outlier there starting to be Georgia. Um, if she gets a 1 point swing in all of these states, well, then she wins the election, right? So that's what Harris is counting on. That's what the Harris team is looking for. Can imagine they're seeing some of that in their own internal polling. That's what I think is going to happen. I could be wrong, but it could be some cope on my end, but we will see. So that is the path forward for Harris. That's the state of the race. Trump, with his biggest lead thus far, in the top battlegrounds, closing ground in the popular vote, but Harris still with plenty of pathways to victory. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys in the next one.